listener production.
Hey, Bension Siebert here with The Briefing. You might have heard this nightmarish story over the weekend. A Lithuanian man got his leg wedged between rocks under the water in the fast-flowing Franklin River in Tasmania. He was trapped for over 20 hours, partially submerged in the river, while rescuers attempted to release him, staving off hypothermia with hot meals and warm drinks in thermoses. Eventually, they concluded the only way to get him out was to amputate the man's leg at the knee. He's been taken to hospital and is reportedly still in a critical condition. So, how does something like this even happen? And if you're thinking about doing any adventure sporting over the summer or for your next holiday, should you think twice about whitewater rafting? Bruce Baxter has spent decades as a professional river guide, including on the Franklin, and at the spot where this man got into trouble. He literally wrote the book, The Ever-Varying Flood Franklin River Rafting Guide. Bruce, welcome to The Briefing. Now, obviously, neither of us were there, but in terms of what would be happening to you when your leg is stuck in a spot like this, what happens to your body and to your mind? Like, this was 20 hours.
You would be thinking to yourself at first, bugger. And that's what would be going through my mind. And that particular thing that's just happened is something very unique, really, as far as scouting along the edge of the river and portaging and slipping in, especially not being right in the middle of the rapid. That's a very odd thing. Like you could roll an ankle or something like that you'd expect, but not necessarily get wedged to the point where you could not get your foot out. I only know of another incident up in Hinchinbrook Island where a fellow was going to get some water from a creek and a boulder just rolled onto him, and he was on a walking trip, and he was stuck with both legs. That's a bad situation to be in.
Absolutely. So while you're stuck there, what are the physical risks? Could you get hypothermia, or could you be hurt by other rocks? Are they moving? Could you drown?
No, the rocks in general are fairly stable where they are. But that's not to say that, you flip into a crevice or something and then it dislodges another rock, and, you can get little wedge rocks that are just not quite in place and they could move or something like that. And it's such a freaky thing for this to have happened. By the sounds of things, they've tried everything they could to get this gentleman out, and a lot of people involved in this particular incident.
Looking at some of the photos that we've seen of this incident, it's obvious this is not a few small boulders that are trapping this man at the time. It's basically sort of part of the river. It's huge rocks. How do you go about rescuing someone in that situation?
Although it's in the riverbed, it was off to the side of the riverbed at that level. Like, I've been in there and that whole section has been completely underwater, 15, 20 feet underwater. So if there was a river rise or something like that, that definitely would be under. But the conditions were, the river was at that medium-low level. But being trapped there for so long, that was the main consideration for the rescuers, really, for what they had to do.
Has anything like this happened while you've been on one of these tours?
No, not while I've been on there. And there have been other things around the world and different rivers here, there and everywhere where people have been caught in these. It's actually, we call it foot entrapment, but generally it might happen when you're swimming in the river itself. You might have fallen out of a raft or taken a swim out of a kayak or something like that. But sometimes a kayak can actually get stuck in a crevice as well. And that sort of thing would, you use mechanical devices to pull them out, or ropes. We have all the safety ropes to do all that sort of stuff. but it's the exception to the rule, definitely.
Yeah, so this seems to have been a pretty rare sort of slip situation. But what can you do when you're either in the river or walking around it to keep safe?
Go slow, take your time, really watch your footing. When we've run tours, we'll go, okay, we don't want anyone going near this area here. Just come up. You can come up on top of a rock and sit on a rock and watch stuff, while the guides might be putting a line on a raft. So there'll be some rapids where you don't actually run the white water just because of the complexities of the rapid and the potential of someone falling out. You'll go, one day you might go, okay, the river level's not right for this. So you'll go, all right, we're going to carry the rafts around this way, or we might line the rafts. But we generally, in a commercial sense, you're generally keeping the novice type people at a distance from those sort of places. But unlike a commercial trip, these guys had done many, many trips. This was like their last trip they were going to do, apparently. You know, if you're out there doing it yourself as a recreational thing, you have to weigh the risk up as you go.
If you were on a tour like this and one of your clients, I suppose, slipped in this way, what are the options available to you sort of immediately?
Look, if they're in the water and this gentleman, he was reachable, they actually had hold of him. So he was accessible, quite accessible, but his situation was he was stuck good and proper. Generally, like in the situation, if it happens on the river, a lot of the guides that work for commercial groups, they're all have done swiftwater rescue and gone through scenarios and have done training for helping save people. The main thing is not really putting them into the situation in the first place. But, saying that, there's always the outside chance of something happening, hence the reason the guides do swiftwater training, extractions and, worst case scenarios.
If you are someone who's listening to this and thinking, well, I'm not going whitewater rafting anytime soon, what would you say to them about the risks?
I would say if you're not going to go whitewater rafting, it might not be your cup of tea, but I definitely wouldn't put them off. There's commercial companies on the Franklin River. There's at least 3 that I know of that are running great trips, and they have fantastic guides. And a lot of people have returned and gone multiple times in a safe fashion. So that's their priority, is to make it as safe as possible. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a great marketing thing.
Sure. How common is something like this happening?
Oh, it's not common at all. It's the equivalent of, a freak accident, really. More chances of getting in trouble crossing the road, I think.
Bruce Baxter there. That's it for this episode of The Briefing. We'd love it if you could share this app with someone you think might be keen to hear it. If you want to keep up with our other content, you can check us out on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast, and on TikTok and YouTube, search Listener Newsroom. We'll be back in your feed tomorrow from 6. I'm Bension Siebert. Catch you next time.